Welcome to the RTS Quick Start Guide. This guide will show you how to use an RTS series lock directly on the lock. Now, we also offer a software package that will allow your computer to program your RTS series locks. This guide will show you how to do almost everything you can do with your software package directly on the lock. We'll begin by turning on the lock. This is the inside portion of the lock. We're going to turn on the lock by pressing the M key. And then you'll see the version of the firmware and the voltage. If you notice there, the voltage on this is 5.89. If that voltage value drops lower than about 4, your batteries are very low power at that time. You would need to replace them. When you're in the menu system here, you use the arrow keys, the up and the down on the lock, to scroll between the various menus. Alright, we're going to begin with lock setup. Lock setup item number 1. You press M to select this. Is date and time. This date and time is used for the lock's various functions, such as access control. It's used for audit trail and anything that has a time date stamp in the device. So we're going to select M on date and time, and you have the month, the day, and the year. Once you're on one of these, you use the up and down arrows to select them. The next item is the time. This is expressed in military time. In this case, it is 6 a.m. Once again, you use the arrow keys to toggle the time, the date, the minute. When you're ready to save, you just press the M key on save. It'll say saved, and you move on. The next item is sensitivity. If you press the M key on sensitivity, this will be a value between 1 and 9. This is the fingerprint sensitivity and only applies if your model lock has a fingerprint scanner. Sensitivity set to a value of 9 is the most friendly and the least likely to reject you when you fingerprint on the front of the lock to access the device. Number 1 is the most sensitive. This is the most likely to reject you when you use the fingerprint on the front of the device. Now we are going to discuss match mode. To select this, you press M on number 3. Match mode allows 3 different modes of operation for the general use of access to this lock. Item number 1 is 1 to N. That means 1 to many. 1 to many is a single operation. When you approach the lock and you activate fingerprint, it will compare your fingerprint to all of the fingerprints that are stored in the device. Same is true if you're using PIN codes. You type in a PIN code, it will compare your PIN code to every PIN code in the device to access this lock. Number 2 option is called a 1-to-1 match. This will require that you type in your user ID and then add your PIN code or your fingerprint, and it is a single 1-to-1 match. It does not make a comparison to any other users that are stored in the lock. Item number 3 is 1 and N. 1 and N is a combination of modes 1 and 2. This will allow you to type in your user ID number and your fingerprint or PIN code, or it will allow a user to use a single entry where you activate the fingerprint sensor and you put your finger down, it'll match to everyone in the lock, or optionally your PIN code and it will match to anyone in the lock. The purpose for this mode is often for the occasional user that needs a 1-to-1 match for best accuracy for that user. Item number 4 in the lock setup menu is called Lock ID. Press M to select item number 4, and you get to choose the Lock ID number. The Lock ID number can be any number between 1, which is 001, and 9,999. The Lock ID number is used when you have more than one lock. If you only have one lock, Lock ID number will always be number 1, and you never need to have another one. Each lock, if you have more than one lock, must have a different Lock ID number that you own. Next item is clear fingerprint and pin. Selecting this option will clear all fingerprints and pin codes in the lock. If you select this, it will wipe out all fingerprints or pin codes in this lock. The next option, option 6, is access time. If you select access time, press M. Access time for this lock is for everyone in this lock except for administrators and managers. This means user numbers 1 through 7 are exempt from the access time features of this lock. If you select access time, this will apply to every user from user number 8 to user number 999 for this lock. Your options are date, time, and weekdays. Date and time are from and to, and it tells you what times that you can actually access the lock. Weekdays, you can cycle between the days that are available or not available, and pressing the M key, in this case Wednesday, and press it a second time to toggle it to no, then this lock will not allow a user, if their user ID number is 8 to 999, to access this door on that day. Press E to move back a menu. And then you have the last option, which is called timed TUM. TUM stands for timed unlock mode. Timed TUM is used for unattended unlocking operation for this lock. The use for this typically is for a business that's open, for example, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The way this works is you set time TUM using this menu, and you set up the days where it activates. For example, Monday through Friday. You can have it where it happens on all days, or, which as you can see here, or all. We're going to just do all in this case. All will literally be any day. We're going to press E to move back one menu option, and again, one back. And you can view the days. In this case, all, as you can see. The function of this capability is so that the lock will unlock at a certain time of day every day and relock at a certain time of time every day. And that way you don't have the access control for a retail business or a business where the door needs to be open during the day. The next menu is the flash drive menu. To select the flash drive menu number 3, you press M and you have two options. Option to upload and the option to download. Use the arrow keys to toggle between them. You press the M key on download, you have records and settings list. Records is your audit trail. This lock stores up to 20,000 records of audit trail information. The second menu option saves the settings list. That would be the settings of this lock. All of the menu options you've selected would be saved in that to the USB flash drive. To move up a menu, you press the E key and you can select Upload. Upload uploads information from the USB flash drive into the lock. That would mean your settings, your users, anything that's on a USB flash drive that's intended for this lock is uploaded that way. We're going to move to the next menu item, which is records. This menu tells you how many audit trail records are stored in this lock. In this case, there are 5 records. These records include administrative access, people accessing the lock, actuating the lock, anything that happens on this lock, a record is stored to let the administrator know that this lock has been used and what it's used for. The next menu option is option number 5. It's called Hard Reset. This menu option is very similar to the reset that you have by using a paper clip under the battery cover and resetting the lock that way. The last option is Update via USB. We're going to select that. Now this would use a USB flash drive to upload the firmware to this device. I'm going to do a quick demonstration on how you would actually do that. To update the firmware, you would copy the firmware onto a USB flash drive and insert it into the bottom of the lock. The blue light will come on, and then you would select M on Update via USB. The lock will then notify you that it is flashing. You want to make sure that you do not hit any keys during the flashing process. The lock will then say that flashing was successful and it will reset with a new version of firmware. So we're going to begin by pressing the M key. If the lock contains no users, you will see a sign that says No Master on your LCD screen. In this case, we have no users embedded and enrolled in this lock. We're going to move the selection to number 2 under User Edit and press M. This will now ask for an ID number. In order to select a user, you would type 001 and then pound. Now, if you were to make a mistake and type in the wrong user, you can backspace by pressing the star key during this process. So we're going to begin by adding a fingerprint for user number 1. Here we're going to select Add FP. In this menu you have 1N, 2N, and 3N as options, and you use the arrow keys to cycle between them. This is up to 3 fingerprints per user. And the more fingerprints you have per user, up to 3 sets, the more accurate and fast the lock will be able to recognize that user. So we're going to begin by selecting 1N. That means it's no fingerprint in 1N. In the second set there's no fingerprint, and on the third set there's no fingerprint. So 1N, 2N, 3N means there are no fingerprints entered for this user. We're going to move it to 1N. We're going to select M. Now it will capture the fingerprint. Success. Now it changes 1N to 1Y. That means that we have 1 fingerprint enrolled for this user. Now I'm going to select where it says 2N and press M. And then we are going to go ahead and select 3N and press M and capture the third one. Each time placing our finger on the finger pad. When we're done, we press E. These are automatically saved at the time of enrollment. To add a PIN code for this same user, we would move the arrow to item number 2 and select Add PIN and press M. Now you'll press a key for each number that is included in the PIN code. This number can be from 2 to 10 digits long. To save a PIN code, when you're typing the PIN codes in, you press the pound key, and then the lock will reply with the word saved. To delete a user, you can delete this user from this menu as well. For access time for a user, you would select number 4. Special note on this is that access time only applies to non-manager and non-administrator users that are created. This means any user number 8 through 999 would apply. Users 7 through 1, this would not apply. But in this case, we're going to set it as an example. So we're going to select ACC time, and we're going to press M. And you have 3 options. You have date, you have time, and you have weekdays. Each one, date and time, are from and to, and these are the times you can access the device. From a time to a time, from a date to a date. These first two menu items. Weekdays allow you to select days that the user cannot access. We're going to select that. In order to toggle that, this is a toggle. You use the arrow keys to select the day, and you use the M key. Press it once to select that day, and then again to toggle it. In this case, if this was user number 8 through 999, this user would no longer be able to access the building on Saturdays. It's asking if we'd like to save that change. We say yes. It shows saved. Now Saturday is now excluded from this user if this user was not an administrator. To move back a menu, you press the E key. You always can use the E key to move backwards a menu.